Hi, this is Amrita Sukumar, and I'm bringing to you this podcast called Unsettling. Look around you. Everyone is trying to create their own story. Make a tiny change in someone's life by just following their passion and, in turn, inspiring the others to follow suit. This podcast brings to you stories of people who have defied the definition of settled set by the society and have created their own. They have found happiness in their version of settled. What is yours? Development is possible when there is a successful execution of ideas that come from a strong policy maker. Welcome back to another episode of Unsettling. Today I have with me Mr. Anuroop Satle, who is an architect but now is working as a development professional who helps strategize, implement, and monitor development policies. Hi, Anuroop.
Hi, Amrita, and
How are you?
thank you for a lovely introduction.
But I think I have not given justice to what you do, and it would be lovely if you could introduce yourself a little more so that my listeners know what is exactly that you do.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Amrita. And I, as Amrita said, I am an architect and who has moved on to working in a development sector as in a development professional.
Mhm.
And uh, I worked on various projects as a development professional on various scales. I worked on Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. I worked on education projects. I've also worked on industrial projects. So it's a very dynamic and an exciting sector, I would say. And we can talk about my journey more throughout the podcast. So that's me in a nutshell.
I hope that whatever structure of questions that I have prepared will help the listeners understand the diversity and intensity of the things that you do. Anurup, I know for a fact that you have done masters, and well, mostly any architect who has completed their bachelor's think whether they want to do masters, whether they really want to invest for further studies. So, what was your thought process? How did you decide?
So for me, when I completed my bachelor's, I kind of worked for like a couple of years as an architect because I wanted to know what my real interest is, and I wanted to know the real world as well, because I feel unless you step onto the ground into the real world, you for me at least, I couldn't have a knowledge of what I like and where I belong to. So I decided to do my masters into international development planning,
Mm-hmm.
because one thing is, like, when I was deciding why to do masters, it's like either you do a masters to upgrade your skill or to gain a new knowledge.
Right.
So so upgrading your skill can come from years of experience, and you can shorten that time by doing a masters. For example, if you're done BH in your undergrad, you can do an MH to upgrade your skill, or you can move on to doing landscape architecture because you want to do a specialization into something. So for that, you need some more knowledge about the profession. So then you do it. In my case, I was totally moving on to a different sector.
Hmm.
So for that, I thought, masters is required.
Hmm.
And when I looked uh, in our country, when I was looking for doing my masters, so already having done architecture for 5 years and then investing another 2 years, and was a big deal for me, because 7 years of continuous education is
Correct.
bit a bit long. And then the course which I got in UK was much more flexible and dynamic in terms of the courses in our country.
Hmm.
And plus it was only 1 year, and give gave me a new exposure. So that is how, and that is why I kind of decided to do masters.
Right.
So you were changing your field altogether, and that is why you wanted to upgrade your skills. Hence, you chose masters.
Yeah, definitely. Like for in my case, when I was going to UK,
Mm-hmm.
I had, everyone has a thing that you're going to UK, you're gonna stay back in the UK, and you're gonna work in the UK, or you're going to US and you're gonna do your masters and stay back over there and work, and you'll have this US dream or something, dream job in the US or something. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was always like I always thought about doing my masters into the development sector, be and I always aim to be based in a developing country. Like for me, my dream job is working in Africa or Afghanistan or someplace or like that,
Mm-hmm.
So uh, it was pretty sure after completing my masters, I was hunting jobs in Africa, in Nepal, and what a better country to come in, because if you can solve problems in India, I think you can solve problems everywhere in the world.
Well, I'm glad that you chose this, but then, as you said, everyone must have thought that you have a UK dream and a US dream, but you ended up choosing development sector over architecture related projects. So, what helped you come to this decision? Did you always have an
This
inclination towards it, or was it something that triggered? Was there a trigger point somewhere in your life?
I For me, I think there were like various trigger points throughout my life. It started from when I was young. I have one of my aunts who is into administration, and most of my family has been into administration at various levels. So I've been traveling with her. I've been observing what work she has been doing. She's been going up on the ground after after a flood, and or talking to people, reaching out to them,
Mhm.
and trying to solve issues on the ground, or really connecting with them. And then I've also seen her tackle situations where there's a fire in the village, and she uh, coordinates with like the police and the fire department, and goes on the ground, manages the situation, takes care of the people. And it's like a multitasking, a very dynamic, on on the spot job role. Like there's no
Right.
specific thing which she had to do every day. It's like every day is something new.
Hmm.
And then I think I had a more inclination towards creativity and problem solving, uh, attitude of things. So that is how I got into architecture. And while I was doing architecture, when I was in DY Patil, I had an amazing time over there. That is where we did Zonasa at that time, and that was the another trigger I had, that I felt that I was more interested into management, connecting with people,
Mhm.
planning things, foreseeing things, and doing bit of disaster management on the way as well. And then I moved on to like how every architecture graduates, either after graduation they start their own firm, or they go on to working with some other architect.
Right.
And I did the same. I started working with design for one of the firms in Bangalore.
Mhm.
And I had great exposure over there because it was a young firm
Hmm.
with a very experienced architect, Megha. And I was literally, on my first day of the job, I was literally thrown into a board meeting for the Bangalore Metro.
Oh, wow.
And and I was like the uh, youngest guy on the table. I think every other person was twice my age at that time. And I was like literally put into the lion's den. And luckily it went through well. And but with me, over the time I was working with the firm, I was given projects to lead. I did redesign of couple of malls in Bangalore,
Mhm.
led an industrial food park project in Bangalore, which was inaugurated by Modi ji in 2014.
Mm.
And while I was doing this, I kind of learned one thing was always pinching me was like, it's like you're not able to touch the people on the ground. It's only a specific set of people whom you work for,
Mm.
and you are only, your world is only around the building.
Right.
So that kind of started to pinch me, and I was like, I started to think, where would I have to be where, I can take such decisions, or not maybe take, but be involved into such decision makings where I can influence the right thought process into things. And then I was like, okay, what about development planning, where where your role is not defined only to infrastructure.
Mm.
You can be deciding you can be planning a development for any project, for any sector, be it education, healthcare, or sanitation, or maybe an industrial development project.
Right.
So this kind of broadened my scope, and that is how I kind of, one step at a time, I moved from architecture to deciding my
Career path.
masters into development planning.
Okay. Okay. That has been a wonderful long journey, and I could see it unfold. I could see how your brain was working and how each and every part of your life unfold. That was wonderful. That was a wonderful revelation. But then again, I would like to come back to the point that when you talk about development planning, what is it exactly? So, what is exactly that you do when you're talking about healthcare and education systems? What is development planning, and how did your background in architecture help you in that?
So development planning, or development sector as we say it, I think it's more about working with multilateral and bilateral agencies, and working with various institutes and organization, and with administrations.
Mhm.
So it involves working with NGOs, working with funding organizations like World Bank or UN, or Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Okay.
It also involves working with organizations who are working on ground, like Tata Trust
Mhm.
and SBI Foundation. And these all organizations come together to work with various administration, be it state administration, or central administration, or district administration, or even if you can narrow it down to a village administration,
Mhm.
to impact the community on ground on specific issues, like for example, health, sanitation and hygiene,
Mhm.
education, or infrastructure. And you have various projects involved into it. For example, it can be as simple as that you're trying to convert a village into a eco village.
Mhm.
So it would involve working with the district and the village administration, and there would be an NGO who would be working on ground,
Mhm.
which would be funded by some funding organization
Mhm.
overall. So you'll have World Bank funding a local NGO to implement a project in a village,
Mhm.
who is also working with the district administration to make implementation smoothly land on the ground.
Okay.
And when it comes on to implementation, it is just not like, it is not it is like tender, you start go and build over there. So
Mhm.
it's like you have to do, you have to trigger the community to accept the new thing
Mhm.
on ground. So
Mhm.
it involves people from various fields. You need people who can mobilize the community on ground. They can keep them motivated for the new thing to come.
Right.
then then you have people who are good with licensing and stakeholder management with the administration, because when it comes on to working with government officials, it's totally a different ball game.
Mhm.
Then you have experts, like you have engineers, or you have people from civil or electrical engineering, or if it is a health project, you have some doctors who are there as an experts on the project.
Okay.
And then you have kind of a team lead who basically leads the whole team on the ground, who
Hmm.
is like, who acts as a link between the NGO and the administration and the team on the ground.
Okay. Okay. So
And yeah,
it's a
that is
very
how, like,
large process.
yeah, it's a very large process, and it's a very small example I gave you of one village project.
Right.
So yeah.
So, what is your role in the development planning? And can you give an example? How was your first landing into the sector?
So my role is basically, it depends on project to project. So every project I would have a different role.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, I'll tell you about my first landing into development sector, and it was, I trust me, it was very difficult, because one is like, you go to UK and you do your masters, and then you come back all together into a, trying to enter a new world and a new sector where you don't know people at all.
Right.
Because all my friends, all my contacts were people internationally,
Hmm.
because I studied in UK. But although it gave me a great exposure about how to network with people, and how to get into projects.
Hmm.
So my first project was in Kanyakumari.
Okay.
So it was a very small project where a district administration in Nellore
Mm-hmm.
was working with one of the institutes over there, which is which had this institute was from schooling to completing someone's graduation into electrical engineering or something.
Okay.
Also the guy who run the institute was also into renewable energy projects. So he was into commissioning windmills and solar field projects for big clients in the district.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea behind the project was to identify very good students, or potential students from the neighboring villages or in the district,
Mm-hmm.
who are from the who have marginalized backgrounds,
Okay.
and they would be sponsored by the institute, partly sponsored by the institute and partly sponsored by the district administration. And once they have completed their graduation into specific field, they are being employed into the sustainable energy sector.
Hmm.
So this project landed uh, uh, very surprisingly. I had met one of uh, one of the person in UK when I was doing a part-time job, and he connected me to another friend of his who was related to this person who runs this institute.
Institute. Yeah. Okay.
And it is all through networking.
Uh-huh.
So it's mostly like you should be the right person at the right time at the right place.
That is so important. That is always important. And considering the fact that you met this guy in UK is saying something.
Exactly, and it has to be like, you have to be very good with your relationship building and communication with people at all grounds.
Hmm.
Because he knew I belong to north or central part of India,
Mhm.
and he called me for a project in southmost tip of India to Kanyakumari,
Right.
and with no knowledge of the language, but he knew that I knew how to get things done. He had already seen that thing. Maybe uh, he got excited by that, and he
Mhm.
gave me a chance. And it was a small project which went on for 6 months, and I created a model where they are still doing these things, and it has impacted lives of so many students in the district, and so many young graduates are going to come out and join the sustainable energy sector and help fight climate change in the country. Maybe it is just like a small drop in a big ocean,
Yeah.
but it makes you smile at sometimes. Mm.
Wow. Yeah, well, your first landing itself was amazing. And as you said that it is very important to have a contact base, and unless you don't have contacts or a network, it's very difficult to land anything. So how did you apply for some of the positions that you held till date?
So most of the positions in the sector are usually most of the interesting positions are never advertised.
Right.
This sector is what you can say. It's like a very small knit family. Everyone knows everybody, and what skill set they have, and what projects. So like if you spend 1 or 2 years in this sector,
Mm-hmm.
you almost kind of know what is happening in that state, which is the team over there, and who's kind of leading the project and stuff like that. And that is one part of it,
Mm-hmm.
to get like to get an insight of a project or an opening into it, and then you network to it. The other way where I've been applying um, and landing into different projects is there are few websites, like you have NGO Box, or you have Development Jobs India, or for in fact you even LinkedIn helps.
Okay.
And on FB you have an amazing platform called Network
Network
Capital,
capital.
which links in people from diverse field who are trying to make a change or trying to impact some community in any
Mhm.
part of the country. They link together. So that is how you come to know about the openings, and you can either apply to it like a regular process, or maybe you can apply and then try to find out key people into the organization and try to approach them through Network Capital or through LinkedIn,
Right. Right.
and and try to have a personal conversation or a personal one-to-one kind of a connect with them, so that once when they see your application in front of them, they'll be like, okay, yeah, I already know this person, I've already spoken to him, he seems to be an interesting person, so let's give him a chance. So it's always being about you need to be very proactive and on your toes. It
Correct.
is not like you just drop in a mail and you
And then
sit
wait
back
for
on your
it.
seat and you wait for it that a mail will pop up and you're like, oh, I got the job. It's never been like that for me.
Correct.
It's been a adventurous run up till now.
I think that is also important because, well, if they know who you are, we tend to look for familiarity, right? So if you are in sync with the person who is recruiting, and you know who that is, and you're putting in an effort to get in touch with them, and make a tiny impression, definitely they are going to remember who you are. And I think people should take this away and definitely put that to use if they're planning to apply for some positions that are completely offbeat. Hopefully, this will help. What are the minimum qualifications or experience necessary?
So again, it all depends on the positions you're applying for. For
Mm-hmm.
example, I could have also uh, got into the sector as an architect, but
Right.
then I would be just an expert about infrastructure in the project.
Mm.
So I would have a limited say in the project team or into the decision making, I would say.
Mm.
But then I wanted to have a bigger say and a bigger role into decision making. So I decided to do my masters into this, and then now people see me as a development planner who kind of strategizes, implements, and creates a monitoring mechanism for the whole of the project, and with an added on skill of an expertise into architecture as well.
Correct.
So in this, I think you need to have an expertise, which obviously helps.
Mhm.
If you are an engineer, if you are a civil engineer, electrical engineer, or a water engineer, that surely helps. Or if you're a doctor, it adds on to a great value to your profile.
Mhm.
And to make your profile stronger, if you have a degree into development studies or development planning or social work or policy planning or
Mhm.
whatever role you want to play into the sector or into the project,
Mm.
if you have a master's into that, that makes your profile much more stronger in front of the employee.
Okay.
And experience, yeah, initially when you look for experience is always a necessity thing into this sector, because here we deal with real people and real lives
Right.
on ground, and most of the time it is just you who is going to do it. There's no one else who's going to come and do that thing for you. So experience is highly important, because dealing with government officials, it comes only by experience.
Correct.
Dealing with villagers, how to motivate them,
Mm-hmm.
it comes it comes through experience. If you have some kind of political influence or coming in way of your project, how to deal with that, that comes through experience. So experience is greatly required. If there are young people, there's always a talk, if you don't give us an opportunity to work, how would the experience come?
Exactly. Yes.
Right. So I would say that the best way to get experience into this sector is to start with small steps while you're doing your masters, or after you're done with your masters. You can start with an internship for 2-3 months for a specific project,
Mm-hmm.
or you can get into a fellowship, so you don't have much of a responsibility uh, to do uh, to get things done. Plus you also have a mentorship from the experts who are already into the sector.
Mm-hmm.
So you grow while you work, and you learn when you work,
Correct.
like this, into a fellowship or an internship.
Mm-hmm.
So that greatly helps.
Okay. Okay. So, are you saying that in the beginning it's okay to do pro bono work and not be earning, rather than expecting something from your employer in this field?
uh, I would say, while you're doing your masters, if you land an internship,
Mm-hmm.
you can see it more as uh, uh,
An
a
experience or
thing,
add-on.
a thing where where you're where you're earning knowledge
Mhm.
as to how to run the field.
Right.
And but I would say कि once you're completed your masters, even if it is an internship or a fellowship,
Mhm.
be it less paid or you're not paid that well, but get into something which is paid, because when you're paid your worth, you know.
Exactly.
Because anything free is not worth.
Exactly. That is true. That is something that I've seen when I was also working. So that is why I wanted to know whether we should accept offers like that. Well, you have spoken about a lot of things that you've done. So, what are all the, can you list the names of the projects that you've worked on till date?
Okay, that is gonna be a very long list. So as I said about starting to work while you're doing your masters, or you're into your last phase of graduation, it always helps. So I started my very first project which I had was in Istanbul, and it was a Kedikoy. So Istanbul, I think, is like one country in two continents.
Mm-hmm.
So on the Asian side of 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 the city, there's a place called Kedikoy. So it's basically a transit hub which is located in a very historical part of this city, which was developed in the 17th century by people from various country had come down from Greece, from Rome, and from Middle East,
Mm-hmm.
and it has a very historical significance into the locality. And the government over there had a proposal to basically revamp this whole riverfront, which is a commercial and a transit and a residential zone,
Mm-hmm.
into something very like a Shanghai kind of a thing.
Okay.
And the Istanbul Technical University was roped in as a knowledge and a resource partner,
Mm-hmm.
and we were working with them. So this project was more about involving people from the local community and understanding their perspective and involving them into the urban redesign of the place, and coming up with a win-win proposal for both the parties, where even the residents are happy, you solve the transit congestion also, and you kind of create a commercial hub which kind of supports the whole area in terms of economic development as well.
Right.
So it was a very interesting project which went on for 3 months, and was one of the most beautiful experiences in one of the most beautiful cities I've ever had, with most beautiful people I've met, I would say. So moving on to the second project which I moved on, as I already mentioned, was in Kanyakumari,
Right.
and it was an amazing project, totally new,
Mm-hmm.
working with education and a sustainable energy. And especially in the summers, you go and see a solar field, and quite an experience to work with young minds as well, whom you cannot communicate that well.
Right.
And that project, as I already mentioned, was very exciting, and after which I moved on to working in Pune. It was
Right.
it was great experience. After architecture, you come back to Pune, the same place where it all began, and started to do not architecture but development. You enter into development sector,
Mm-hmm.
and there I was working on a project which was funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and we were working with Pune Municipal corporation to take care of urban sanitation issues in the slums of Pune.
Right.
So it was mainly about community toilets and waste management into urban slums of Pune.
Mhm.
So there in that project, my role was specifically to develop kind of infrastructure, kind of uh, an ideal model for a community toilet in the urban slums of Pune,
Mhm.
and also try and work with the whole team to develop a financial or a business model
Mhm.
to take care of the operation and maintenance of the toilet, because uh, as as I think every one of us would have experienced that uh, in India, making infrastructure or building infrastructure, as we say correctly in civil terms,
Mhm.
is not a problem, but
Correct.
maintenance is the biggest issue. So here we came up with a model where women from the community would be trained
Mhm.
to act as our promoters in the community itself. So within a month, we would train them into using smartphones, speaking in English, going door to door, or talking to the community about menstrual hygiene issues, best sanitation practices, and promoting them to use the toilet.
Mhm.
And we had developed a kiosk where after their field work they would come and sit over there in the kiosk, and that kiosk would add as an bank for them. So we had a tie up with SBI Bank where everyone who goes to the toilet can deposit 1 or 10 rupee or any amount of money through that lady,
Mhm.
and they can buy recharges through MobiKwik, which and this all of this operation is done on Asha pad we had bought from them,
Mhm.
and it was done by these women who were trained in 1 month.
Okay.
So and they would even we also started buying e-commerce things for them. So for example, uh, most of the amazing discounts on Amazon or Flipkarts cannot be availed by the people in the urban slums because they don't have a postal address.
Right. Uh-huh.
So, and these are the people who are much more in need of these big discounts or Amazon sale or Republic Day sales and these kind of things. So, our toilet is one of the only places in the slums which has a permanent address, and
A
so
geolocation.
these a geolocation, and we got it geotagged. You
Uh-huh.
can you can find it on Google as well now,
Mhm.
and anyone from the slum can come up and they can sit with the Sakhi, what we call them. We used
Mhm.
to call them Sakhi, and they would kind of go through the Amazon, they help them buy the thing, and then it would be delivered over there, and that is how things would work. And in terms of infrastructure, we tried to change what my thinking with the project was. I wanted to change the perception of the toilet.
Hmm.
Why is a toilet seen as a dirty place?
Right.
Because you see it as a toilet. Like, no one goes to a bank and spits, right?
Hmm.
No one goes to a five-star hotel and he spits over there, because he knows that it's a very beautiful, well lit, and very clean place. So no one that behavior never comes in from anyone that he should go and spit over there.
Correct.
So we wanted to get in the same behavior change in the community toilets over there. So we started with making the toilet as the most beautiful place in the whole locality over there.
Hmm.
So uh, uh, you would see a toilet is painted in purple color.
Mm-hmm.
It is well lit
Hmm.
from outside, and plus it has a rangoli drawn on the walls
Mm-hmm.
of the toilet,
Hmm.
and plus you'll find some planters into the tires and waste tires over there.
Okay.
So, and plus you will find like you find pans in the railways, you'll find the same thing in the community toilets over there. So all of this thing was specifically researched and experimented and then converted into a model, because one thing is like, why purple color? Like, so it's like a purple color, so it's a most neutral color. It doesn't belong to any religion, any
Hmm.
community,
Mm-hmm.
or any political party. It's just
Right.
a happy, neutral, passionate color.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why it's a purple toilet,
Hmm.
and then it is well lit from outside, because uh, all the all the all the plumbing lines which used to run inside the toilet,
Hmm.
I made them run outside the toilet into a multiple color thing.
Oh, okay. So it created a
Because
graphic of its own.
uh, that was one thing, but the primary agenda behind this was because to avoid vandalism.
Okay. Okay.
So community is like slums are the place where you have people who are the most marginalized people in this city, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have instances where people would cut off the tap, they would cut off the plumbing line itself, they'll
Oh
go
my
and sell the thing in the market. Yeah, you so we had experiences like that where, you know, anything which is worth even 5 rupees would be taken away and sold out in the market to buy anything. Okay, so the best idea to stop robbery is to keep the treasure out in the open with all the lights.
God. Right.
So, so all the pipelines, they run outside the toilet and it is well lit.
Hmm.
So if you want to do it in the bright light in front of everyone, and then everyone knows who has done it, right?
Right.
So it is like, you know, it's always been if you want to make a change at some place, you need to trigger it some other place.
Right. So
it
make
it
behavioral changes based on the kind of design that you're providing, and automatically make sure that people don't do a certain thing, which is quite
Exa-
interesting.
ex- exactly. I always say that any space brings in a behavior change,
Mm-hmm.
and this project was all about that. Like rangolis on the wall came in because when the construction or the redesign of the toilet began, there was a lot of backlash from the women in the community over there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, if you know, empty vessels make more noise, so I was like, let's get them occupied.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that, you know, uh, they were making beautiful rangolis outside their doors. I was like, uh, can you come and draw a rangoli on the wall? And
Mm-hmm.
they took it as a challenge, and they got involved into it. Like, that was my way of public participation into the project.
Hmm.
And once they had made the rangoli on the wall, they thought it is their toilet and their wall to be safeguarded, you know.
Right.
And they got an ownership of the project. And once the whole place got very colorful, bright, with the rangoli lit with the beautiful lights over there, their kids started to play around it, around the toilet. So once the kids started to play around the toilet, everyone started to keep the toilet clean, because it is their kids' life and health which revolves around it.
Mhm.
So that is how the whole community got the ownership of the project, and we created around 9 such model toilets in Pune,
Mhm.
and in the urban slums of Pune. And every purple toilet with a rangoli you see, it's I can I can say that, yeah, it's one of my model toilets.
Wow.
So the next project after this, it was like, obviously I was drawn into the sanitation world, and I got an opportunity with Tata Trust, which was working with Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation to work on Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, the pet project of Prime Minister Modi ji at
Mhm.
that time. And I started my journey in uh, Jaisalmer, one of the most driest and the hottest city in the country.
Okay.
And you are going there to teach people how to use the toilet, why to use the toilet,
Huh.
and they don't care about it because they don't need it. It's a vast deserted land, right?
Right.
So it was quite interesting. We had some interesting innovative ways to motivate community, where we involved local Kalvilia dancers and the artisans to make some few dances and songs,
Mhm.
which can be spread across the community to give out the same message in a more musical way, I would say,
Right.
because going and giving a bhashan never works with the community. And the other thing what we did over there was like, we invited international artists for art residency thing in a village for 10 days,
Hmm.
where international artists worked with the local community, and uh, worked on various art and cultural exchange things. And the local community kind of realized that, if they make their place clean and beautiful, people from across the world, they love to come and see their place. They spend time with their kids, and
Right.
they earn out of it. So
Mhm.
that became like an ideal model over there, which is now being replicated across the district over there.
Mhm.
And the other thing, interesting thing, was making a toilet out of plastic bottles.
Okay.
So so you have a large amount of plastic bottle waste, because it's a desert, and you need water bottles over there, the Bisleri bottles and the cool drink bottles.
Mhm.
So y- and transporting goods across the district was a major issue, because in terms of land area, Jaisalmer is one of the largest districts in the country,
Hmm.
and most of the expenses would be spent on transporting goods. So the idea behind was just to use sand, fill it in the plastic bottle, and you get a brick, and
Oh.
that one PET bottle brick is then used as a normal brick to make a toilet. So you can make the same thing, instead of 12,000, you can make it in 4,000 rupees.
Mhm. Wow.
So
So
that
you recycled
so
and you created something new. Wow.
so yeah, that was exciting. That was like even skilling up the local masons as well, and it's been quite a hit thing over there. Now people have been interested to make houses from it. I don't know if the uh, they
I hope
can
nobody
as
opens
of
the caps
now.
of the bottles. That's it, and lets the sand out.
No, it's been
Otherwise,
all
it's fine.
sealed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's all sealed, right? It's all
I know.
sealed, like
I
how
was.
you.
Yes, I was just trying to make a joke. Didn't work. It's okay.
Okay. And yes, and then so on. Then moved on to Jammu Kashmir. After
Mhm.
that, from the deserts to the Himalayas in Jammu Kashmir. and quite an exciting journey over there. Been through stone pelting,
Oh
been
God.
through burning tires as well,
Mm-hmm.
and there I had an opportunity to directly work with the at the state office. So I was directly working with the state director who was working on Swachh Bharat Abhiyan over there, and we created a couple of very interesting models. We created a pink toilet model for school girls
Mm-hmm.
in there, and we also created in the same model. It not only looked about a vending machine for a sanitary pad an incinerator for the used pads, but we also created a mechanism which would monitor the maintenance and operation of the model as well,
Okay.
which
Oh.
was kind of in yeah, it was kind of very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And and then I got a chance over there to work with Mr. C. Srinivasan,
Mm-hmm.
who has this model, a Vellore model, as we call it, or as he calls it,
Mm-hmm.
and he is one of the experts into waste management in the country, and he is the member of a National Green Tribunal. So we created a model where any waste in this city can be converted into wealth by various procedures, like leaves and the dung can be decomposed to make manure of or, organic fertilizers for the farm,
Mm-hmm.
and the hard waste could be categorized into 56 different categories and could be sold into various markets in the country. You would be surprised to imagine that, if you have a hair which is more than 10 inches long, it sells for more than 2000 rupees a kg.
Wow, really? I will be rich.
Yeah.
I have grown my
Yeah.
hair during the lockdown.
Exactly. So we have done a great sensitization into the community over there, that all the businesses, like for example, when you tell a saloon owner that, the hair which you cut and you throw outside in on the road or in the gutter or in the bin, which
Hmm.
doesn't get recycled, or which is very difficult to segregate afterwards,
Hmm.
if you just collect it by yourself and then you come to us, we will give you so much of a money out of it. Then everyone is happy about the things, right? And everyone earns about it. So it's like you earn from the waste which you generate.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a great experience working with Mr. Srinivasan, and one of the most amazing administrative officers I've ever worked. uh, Hindu Kamal Chib ma'am, and amazing adventurous time in Kashmir, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, now I've moved on to, so up till now I've been moving along India-Pakistan border,
Mm-hmm.
and now I've moved to India-Nepal border,
Okay.
and I am placed in, as I say, this place I call this as Yogi Land in Gorakhpur.
Mm-hmm.
So I take care of Gorakhpur division, which is 4 districts, and here we are working on one district, one project scheme, which involves developing factory units for local artisan to conserve local art and promote local art to an international level.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been going great. It involves 4 districts of 4 different types of artists and products ranging from terracotta to banana fiber to
Wow.
wooden furnitures to handmade cloth or decorative items. So kind of a great exposure, and a very interesting place to work at, and it's been, yeah, quite an adventurous time, I would say, up till now.
I am damn sure. So you have literally been pasteurized. You've been to the hottest places in the city, then moved on to the coolest places, and done so much, learned so much, taught so much. I think it's a wonderful journey, definitely. Well, now coming to the main point, when you talk about policy changes, this situation that we are in, that's the COVID-19 situation, it doesn't seem to go away. So, what are the policies in the making for the post-COVID pandemic situation?
We have worked on policies for uh, how to make more entrepreneurs in the region,
Mm-hmm.
and how to employ or skill up more people in the region, so that it can be accommodated to make a sustainable economy into the ecosystem of the country. So you get entrepreneurs who start new units, plus you skill up people or the migrant workers to be employed into those units, and you make the whole region a sustainable ecosystem which runs on its own, and it's not dependent on other situations, because I think in coming
That is the
times
need of the hour
it,
now.
it's the need of the hour. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So you have been doing really interesting work, and I don't think we have even touched the surface of what all you have been doing. We have just been talking in just so that people understand. And I'm sure that the work that you do in detail is much more intriguing and intricate, which is possible only if someone is working on the field. So I would like to ask you: do you have any message who would to give the architects who want to join the development sector and work, do the work that you do?
I think there's only one message which I would like to give is, like, if you want to work on a larger scheme of things, and in the process you want to impact many people on the ground, I think this is the place where you'll get that thing. And plus it's not very different from architecture. Here you're making, in architecture you're making, or you're designing buildings, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Here you're designing schemes which make people's life. So yeah, it's a very interesting field to be in. So if you want to be there, and if you need any help, yeah, you can always get in touch.
I'm sure. I hope people do. Well, coming to my final question, I would like to ask you, what is your definition of settled? And I don't think you're settling anytime soon, looking at your story.
No, no, no. That's, I think, very far away, or I have not actually. I think there's no such thing as settled. I think settled, I think it's more like, you settled, it's more like pit stops you have in the journey.
Mhm.
So once you reach that pit stop, for a while you feel settled, you rejoice it, you get rejuvenated, you enjoy it, and then you move on into your unsettling journey.
Okay, wonderful. So settling is just pit stops in your unsettling journey. Keep on moving, keep on striving, keep reaching new horizons. And well, thank you, Anurup. This I come to the end of my segment. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and helping us understand what you do, what kind of things that you have been doing, telling us in detail about so many things, from Swachh Bharat Abhiyan to setting up sanitation and talking about menstrual hygiene. You have covered so much, and I'm really glad that you are in the sector, helping people out at ground level. And hopefully, someone is inspired to do this, volunteer their time, and be there. Thank you, Anurup. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amrita, and it was great talking to you. And yeah, it's just like uh, a kind of a try to try and make a better living world, at least on a smaller scale. And let's see how it works in the coming times. Yeah.
Yes, yes. In the coming times, I hope we are all stronger together and we move back to the ground and learn from it. Hopefully, everyone has. Thank you so much for
All
taking
right.
your life. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Hello, people. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this episode and you like Unsettling, all you have to do is give me a feedback. And for that, please visit my Instagram page, that is Amrita Sukumar _unsettling. And well, you can send me a DM or you can send me a mail. All the details are there on that page. I would love for you to just tell me how you feel. Yeah. And I will get back to you. And if you have any people who would like to share their stories, you have to let me know because I would love to listen to them. Till then, stay tuned to Unsettling. Like, share, subscribe, follow, let your friends know, and stay safe. Yeah? Bye.